the KRG X-Ray chassis, right now on Pirate Firearms and Reloading. Okay folks, today we're going to have a chat about the KRG X-Ray. This has got to be one of my favourite chassis that's still affordable, but gives you most of the ergonomics you're going to get in a competition firearm. It's also still light enough that if you did want to hunt with this, you could, which is really nice. So my particular one is inletted for my Tikka T3X CTR. So I'm going to start from the back here. So what we do have is a buttstock that you can add length of pull spaces to it. I think this is something that we all demand at this point, something that's got an adjustable length of pull and an adjustable cheek riser of some description. So it has this little wheel here, and we simply crank on it like this, and then it releases the butt pad to where you can move it up and down, and you can also cant it. And then it has little notches on the inside there which allow you to lock this back into place. So I like mine to sit roughly there somewhere, and then you simply dial it, keep going until it locks itself back into place and really crank down on it. The one thing I don't really like is it does still have a little bit of movement in there. It's not terrible, it's not enough to put me off, but it's the way it goes. This guy here is probably my biggest bugbear. So it does have a little knob on the side here, and I use the O-rings that it's supplied with to make sure that when I do put this back in place, it goes back in the same place. The bolt on this particular inlet, the Tikka inlet, will not clear it in the position I have it. So I do have to remove this every time I take my bolt in and out. Not a big deal. Something you come to expect with a non-folding chassis rifle. So they do make a rubber over molded cheek piece, which I think I'm going to have to pick up. I don't really find I get too comfortable on this guy. The one good thing I do like about it though, it is quite short, but there is adjustability. So there's two cap screws down in there which actually screw into these rods. What you're going to want to do is lock it into place like that. That's going to clamp the rods in place. You can then put your Allen heads down there, unscrew that, and move it back and forward. That is a nice touch, and it's a good way to set it up. I did find that you do have to mount your scope rather high because you can't bring this cheek riser down low enough in some situations. I like to typically get my scope as low as possible. I know there's pros and cons to doing it both ways, but I found that I just couldn't get it low enough for my face shape, which is a little bit of a downfall. The other thing is, because you have this swept up and very narrow profiled buttstock here, when you're using a rear bag, you definitely need some form of bag rider or a very tall rear bag. I'd prefer to have one rear bag in a sort of average handful type size. So yes, I do have quite a ridiculous bag rider on this. Moving forward to the grip and trigger area. So you do have these really nice thumb shells, which allow you to get a great purchase with that sort of thumbs up or same side thumb position. Now for my hand, and compared to the Bravo has a very fat grip here. The X-Ray is quite slim and is actually a little bit set further back. You can actually replace these panels here. If you see the line here and the two bolts here, you can actually replace these with fatter grips, which when they become available with the local importer, I will be purchasing. But in the meantime, what I've found is if I put my fingers like this, ride my thumb up, that gives me my perfect 90-degree trigger control. You do have an ambidextrous mag release. It is actually screwed, so if you're worried about catching this guy, you can actually take these two tabs off the side and just leave yourself with a stalk mag release. And obviously the idea being is you can ride forward, push forward with your trigger finger, and then remove your magazine, in this case a chamber block. You do have your 5 on either side drilled and tapped screws here to add a bridge, shroud, night vision bridge, Picatinny rail, whatever you deem necessary over the top there. You do have 2 M-lock slots. As you can see, I've filled one with a sling stud. And you do have a series of mounting screws underneath, which I've used to attach an arc rail. KRG offer their own arc rails. I have an aftermarket one. Doesn't really matter as long as you use the T-nuts, which slide inside the forend. You can pretty much attach whatever you like to that screw pattern configuration allows, and there's a lot of options too. These forends are also replaceable. You'll notice the seam back here, so you can replace these with enclosed forends, things like that. You can replace it with the Whiskey 3 rear end to get the folding stock if you really wanted to. You've got all those options. And just like the other KRG offerings, down here in the front, you have the slot for the spigot mount, which protrudes forward again. So you can get those in Picatinny, Arca, and like a blank one with a whole lot of drilled and tapped screw holes into it, so you can add your own accessories or even potentially direct bolt a bipod to them. Arca rail works for me. This forend's long enough, and with my short little T-Rex forearms, I'd rather be able to get up here to the adjustments on the bipod rather than punching it out even further and then having to break my shooting position completely to make an adjustment up here. So for me, this is actually the perfect length. So just like all chassis, it's a direct drop-in. You order it for your inlet, so all your common inlets are available. Remington 700, Tikkas, the list goes on basically. It doesn't come with any provision back here to add a spare round quiver, so I have actually just drilled these into the polymer shield. So the aluminium backbone of the chassis is here visible in black, which extends the entire length of the forend to give you that stability out with the bipods and whatever else you're using out here. And then the remaining back section and the panels around here are polymer. So the other thing too, you see that split design there, you do have the ability to pull this plastic forend shroud back and forward, and that provides tension onto the AICS magazine. And yes, they do take AICS magazines. There are, I believe, some out there of Bravos and KRGs that you can get which take the factory CTR magazine or the TACO one, it's the same magazine, for the Tikka options. I have heard about them, and I've spoken to somebody who's got one, but I've never actually seen one in person. I can't imagine it's all terribly sophisticated. It's just got a different profile in the magazine well here. But it is nice that you can pull that back and forward and get the correct amount of tension for your magazine. We all know that AICS magazines do have a little bit of tolerance in them. Some people prefer them to be locked in real tight. Some people want them to fall free, so you've got that choice, which is really nice. The action does sit up quite high in the chassis, which is why you then have to bring your butt pad up if you're into having everything in line. Now, I pointed something else also on the Bravo, and it does transfer over here to the X-Ray chassis, and that's there's a gap under where the bolt handle will sit in the closed position. There's a gap which allows dirt to fall into the well that houses the trigger assembly. Not a deal breaker. It would have been really nice if they had a little cover or something that went over that. I haven't managed to get anything down there to the point where I've jammed it up, and occasionally when I'm servicing the rifle I do pull it out of the chassis. You might find a little bit of grass down there or something. Not truly the end of the world. But all in all, I do quite like this chassis. I think if I was going to go again, I would probably buy a Bravo for this rifle actually. I just like the way it feels when I'm shooting it a little bit more than the X-Ray. The X-Ray has one distinct advantage though, and it's the ability to both grip it with a thumb on the same side, but also if you're moving around the place you can grip all the way around just like a standard pistol grip. And some people really want that if they're trying to move and control. If you're going to take this rifle into the field, that would be a huge advantage to be able to get a really firm purchase on that grip. Particularly as we know competition rifles are getting heavier and heavier. Maybe this is not a full-on competition rifle chassis, but if you're sort of making a crossover type rifle, having that extra control is quite nice. So that's the KRG X-Ray. Catch you in the next one.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. And if you found this video helpful, please share it with your friends. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments below. Catch you next time.